After a few days of experimenting and learning, I have an updated opinion on what I think the future of online play is going to look like. To start, we have some good news and some bad news for our more casual audience. The good news is that the future metagame will be more friendly to those using off-meta combos. For the players who just want to casually worldwide with their favorite characters, this is a big win. Furthermore, this is a change that shouldn't bother the more competitive players either, and this is because the best combos were not nerfed, rather everything else was buffed. This makes for a faster game overall, and on paper this should be a win for all online players. The bad news, as I alluded to in the last video, is that despite all of these buffs to lesser used setups, it is still more than likely that there will be a meta combo that is eventually decided on and spammed in worldwides down the road. Furthermore, I think that the players who were frustrated with this Waluigi Wiggler spam pre-patch will encounter a lot of the same problems with this new meta combo. It is true that you won't be at as much of a disadvantage this time, but I think the results will stay the same for most. The truth of the matter is that most of you weren't losing just because your opponents were using a better setup, it was because your opponents actually were more skilled. Some of you can surely be a counterexample. For instance, one of the top players in the United States was a Shy Guy main during the thick of the pre-patch era. If this guy was beating some of the top players in the world with Shy Guy, trust me when I say that you not beating random Waluigis was more of a skill issue than it was just Waluigi being broken. Anyways, let's address the elephant in the room. Why is there likely going to be a single meta combo, especially when you just showed me that players can win with off-meta builds? Well, it has to do with the idea of outclassing. We might say a build is outclassed if there is zero reason to use it over a different one if your primary goal is to win. You see, Mario Kart differs from a lot of games because of its primary goal. Oftentimes in other multiplayer genres, the goal is obtained through mind games with opponents, and a lot of different playstyles work and can assist in winning. Mario Kart has some of those elements, but because the primary goal is finishing a race as fast as possible, something you can do without other players on the course, you are often more focused on being quick than you are opponents. An expression in this game typically comes in the form of what tracks you select rather than characters and builds, because each build has the same playstyle more or less. Certain builds are just faster than others objectively speaking, and that is enough for players to gravitate toward one, because why play something that is the exact same playstyle but just worse? There's one exception actually when it comes to playstyles, and that is with the inside drifting bikes, but only a small percent of players seem to vibe with that playstyle. This makes the meta combo most likely to just be the best new build using, Wiggler's playstyle. There are a lot of stats in this game, but they are not created equally. Acceleration is cool and all, but in a game where mushrooms are so common, it is not always as applicable as something like speed. And while acceleration matters, it can sometimes feel negligible compared to speed, and same goes for stats such as handling. If you're able to take every turn well enough, you could argue that extra handling wouldn't really be useful to you anymore. Speed, though, has been the most important stat in really every game going back to Mario Kart Wii, which is why Funky Kong, Metal Mario, and Morton were the best characters in those last 3 games. But why exactly was Waluigi the former meta then, given that he wasn't the fastest character? Well, in Deluxe, there was also a second very important stat that controlled how fast you would go, and that is the hidden Mini Turbo stat. Mini Turbo had a nearly inverse relationship with speed, making this, kind of an interesting situation. This meant that the community had to find the right balance to be as fast as possible. The Wave 4 update took a lot of the characters with lower speed and higher Mini Turbo and buffed both their speed and Mini Turbo stats. And we don't know 100% what is optimal right now, but we do know that, quote, optimal has shifted closer to the medium weights as opposed to before. The community actually has no idea of what's going on right now, but I think history can be indicative of what we should be expecting here. Lots of people are seeing Yoshi and Birdo world records, for instance, and people are finding a lot of new reasons to try new stuff with characters we fought that would really never be meta, and many claim that there's not an optimal build. Now, I think that this is probably an overreaction, and we are likely overestimating just how much has truly changed. I remember when the game came out, we were in similar disarray. Multiple months into the game, we had settled really on no main combo, and top players were using, like Morton Blue Falcon Standard or Gold Mario Mach 8 in the World Cup Finals of the first year. And I was actually one of the first to discover the meta, using DK instead of Waluigi, but I think it's interesting to highlight this match because from the time of this 2017 match and to just a week ago, no stats were changed. Waluigi Wiggler was still optimal at this time, we just didn't know yet, and we are seeing a lot of new combos today. These combos will likely not last forever even if we want them to. But anyways, what do I think the new meta combo will be? Well, here's what appears to be most likely to me. It's going to be the Rosalina Link or King Boo tier with roller tires, and I think it's going to be either Teddy Buggy or Ink Striker. Now, Rosa Teddy appears to be a better version of Waluigi Bitty Buggy, and Rosa Ink Striker appears to be a better version of Waluigi Wiggler. Despite the similarities, the analogies are not one-to-one though. For instance, the handling of Ink Striker seems to be worse by comparison, and Teddy might have an advantage where the Biddy did not pre-patch. So it is hard to say which one feels more likely, but I think I'll personally be trying Teddy for a while as somebody who played Biddybuggy pre-patch. There is an elephant in the room though. These Yoshi combos are setting world records left and right. Is he not just faster now? And if he is, why would he not become, the meta? Well, we have to get into one final subject, and that is that there is a difference between having more speed and being faster. For instance, the Biddybuggy was faster than the Wild Wiggler in the last patch, despite the Wiggler having a higher speed stat. But the higher speed stat helped the Wiggler out in a lot of different ways and situations online. Matter of fact, a lot of featherweight combos were faster on like half the tracks, but they were garbage online because their speed stat was so low. And while you can manipulate Mini Turbo to sometimes be quicker like we saw in those baby time trials in the past, the lack of speed stat can still be crippling. Time trials are a controlled place where nothing goes wrong. Oftentimes these combos needed to be in a rhythm to be faster, and oftentimes they were faster overall but could not hold on to first place because other combos just blazed by it on straightaways, namely early in races. Consider also that whenever these mini turbo centric combos weren't taking advantage of their mini turbo stats, they were at a disadvantage. This included when these combos were bagging or using mushrooms and all of that in the back of the pack. Their speed while doing this is just slower than the faster build. These combos were really only faster than the former meta when they are boosting with their extended mini turbos. The advantage of these babyweight combos is really just that they were faster when, they had the longer boosting time up in the front. But if they're using mushrooms in the back, they're just going slower than when other combos are using, mushrooms in the back because their speed's too low. Already I've noticed quite a few situations where the light cruisers like Link have been able to take advantage of facing off against slower opponents. And even if these combos are finishing time trials slower than Yoshi on occasion, online there's just a lot of benefits they gain. It is enough that I am skeptical that the Yoshis can ultimately win out, but we'll just have to see. I believe it's been Nintendo's goal to have a diverse metagame this whole time, and they might just get it, and it may appear that we are on track for it. What I think, however, is most likely is that we just get a little closer to that, and fall just a little bit short. But hey, closer would still be an improvement that is better for everyone and should still make a lot of people happy. And at the very least, that is motivating.